Okay, welcome back to another edition of the post-game press conference on YouTube. I'm Ryan Pigeau alongside John Lodge, and this program is all about breaking down the recent advancements within the sports world. The NHL, the NBA, the major leagues were set to Okay, let me start that over. The NHL, the NBA, the major leagues, we're always poised to deliver hot takes on all of it. So sit back, relax, and let's dial it in. Today, we're getting caught up to speed on some headlines. In the NHL, the Canucks' return to play was a miracle win against our Toronto Maple Leafs last night, thanks to Braden Holtby himself. And the Avalanche are the most recent team to have some games postponed due to COVID-19 protocols. We've got some news after a nasty hit on Zach Hyman that we'll get into later on. Alex Edler is going to sit for 2 games for the Canucks. And Max Domi is going to sit as a healthy scratch for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So lots of NHL headlines to get into. In the MLB, the Blue Jays have dropped 3s against the KC Royals. The Yankees are off to their worst start since 1997, and Jay Bruce retires just 10 games into his Yankee career. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit. The Red Sox are still top of the Jays division. They have a series coming up against them tomorrow. And in the NBA, Kevin Durant can't stay healthy this season, John. He's had some frustrating time off for the Nets, and the Raptors beat the OKC Thunder for no apparent reason. So we'll talk some NBA, some MLB, and some NHL today. As always, there's lots to get into on all fronts. So if you are streaming, feel free to direct any questions or comments about today's show to our Twitter account. That's at postgame_media. If you want to make some sort of contribution, be sure to do that. And don't forget to give us a follow to stay caught up to date on all of our content. I'm at EH4 and effort. And John over there is at John Lodge Music. Before we get into last night's game, John, how are you doing today, my friend?
Pretty good. The Rogers network was down all day, so got to sit at home once the Wi-Fi kicked back in, watch some movies, play some MLB The Show.
I was gonna say, let me guess what you've been up to.
Brand new game. I haven't played a lot of video games in the last and be completely honest, the last couple of years. I bought the Kobe edition, the Mamba edition of 2K last year. Put a little bit of time into that one, and then I bought the show for this year. I'm only about 7 hours of gameplay in, and I got it on Friday, so I'm not like diving deep into it like a lot of people. But yeah, I definitely got my toes wet. It's a good game.
You beat a couple conquests here?
Oh yeah. I've done a couple of conquests, done some of the moments. You got to build your team up before you take people out online, right?
Did you take? Was it Ken Griffey or Babe Ruth? Is your first pick here?
They gave you Roberto Clemente, and then they gave you a pick of like 9 different guys this time.
Oh, okay.
Right, and so I went with the namesake. I went with Jackie Robinson for my pick, not simply based on the fact that the game was named or the game was it was Jackie Robinson edition this year, as I show everyone the case there.
Beautiful.
But simply based on the fact that he was the most well-rounded player there, fast, could field, could hit for power. Everyone, they had Frank Thomas there. That was really tempting. The Big Hurt.
Oh, the Big Hurt.
And I got to use the Big Hurt today in a moment, and man, well, I might be regretting it just a little bit because the fact you literally barely have to touch the ball to make that guy hit a home run. So
yeah. See, I got MLB The Show last year, the 20, and I haven't bought 21 yet. I don't play it enough to keep up. Like NHL, I buy every title, but I remember I think it was like the very first conquest in MLB The Show 20. The reward for beating it was you got like an 84 overall, Frank Thomas, and yeah, he was on my lineup forever. He was one of my favorite players. Didn't watch a lot of baseball when I was a kid, and right when I got hooked into it, it was like 08, 09, and he was the DH on the Blue Jays. You know what I mean? So it was kind of right in my wheelhouse. Guy that I love too. So that's pretty awesome. But I knew it just based on the hat and just based on the time off. It wasn't an easy, or it wasn't a difficult guess. You've been spending got hard work on the show lately, but good for you, man. Keep grinding, and it's a blast of a game. Like I said, I don't play it tons of when I do have it, but man, when you get going on those conquests and you start taking over territories, you get hooked for hours, do you not?
Oh yeah. It's like it's because it's more of a strategic game as opposed to just playing one-on-one against a person, right? You're like, okay, well, I've got to take over these 5 territories before I attack this guy, but I need to. It's so much. It's fun, but yeah, you can lose yourself for hours in Conquest. Before we get into everything else. Favorite Frank Thomas. I brought this up on the post game before, but if you haven't listened to us before, this is your first time. First and foremost, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, follow. Let us know what you want. But secondly, favorite Frank Thomas moment of all time for me is just watching him in the warm up circle, right? And just swing that massive piece of rebar. like just a huge thick piece. Everyone else swings maybe 2 or 3 bats. That wasn't enough for Frank Thomas. He had a thick chunk of rebar, full bat sized, and he just swing that bad boy around in the on deck circle, and it was a sight to behold. So yeah, as much as Frank Thomas has done wonderful things for many franchises, that sticks out the most to me because that's what I got to see.
The pure intimidation. All right, going into Sunday night, last night against Vancouver, how is this anything like the David Ayers game? Because I'm all over Twitter and I'm reading some pundits say this is essentially this big loss by the Leafs in a game that they were essentially dominant for 3 straight periods and continuously shut down by Braden Holtby. There's tons of people with this take, like this is the 2021 version of the David Ayers game. How am I comparing the two, John? Can you help me in some way here?
I mean, I think it gets best explained by the fact that the Leafs are the best team in the Atlantic, or the Atlantic. Show my brain now going
Yeah.
back to last year, are the best team in the North Division right now.
Mhm.
And when the best team comes to town, no matter what happens, you're getting that team's best game. And so the Leafs, whenever they have one of these off type games that people complain about, it's because they are having a bad game. They don't get that opportunity to have a bad game because it looks so horrible because every other team they're facing is having their best game because they're the best team, right? So that's why the contrast is so stark. I don't put this up with the David Ayers game at all. This team has learned so much more. And I mean, yeah, you got the 2-1 lead in the third period. You give that up, and then you go to overtime. If you lose to Vancouver in regulation, I can see you possibly getting a little bit upset, but you get the 1 point out of there, and yeah. So what? They had COVID. You think that these aren't professional athletes and they still can't do something? They may not be able to do it to the level that they're normally used to doing it. And this is the Vancouver Canucks, the bottom team in the league, but they're still an NHL team. They're still professional athletes, and they're still going to go out there and try their best. And that's exactly what they did. And they took advantage of something we don't often see in overtime. They had the puck, they possessed it, they left the zone, they didn't give the puck. That's something that the Leafs have done on their power plays, and so the Vancouver Canucks did that to the Leafs. No frivolous shots, no 2-on-1s, no nothing like that.
Possession hockey.
It was
for sure.
possession hockey, and they took advantage of it. They got the wide open guy, and Jack Campbell let in a stinker of a goal.
Yeah, he started again. I wasn't 100% sure if he would even start because he's coming back down to earth, right? He's in his own self-titled slump. Finally loses a game after winning 11 straight, then gets hooked in the next game. So he's kind of 2 in a row that's kind of struggled. And then I had a feeling that David Riddick might start this game just because he's the new acquisition. We've liked what we've seen so far, and I don't think there's any reason to keep him on the bench. You want to kind of see what he's got as quick as possible, right? So I thought maybe Campbell wouldn't start. He starts again last night, plays what I thought is a solid game. But I can't help but key in on that overtime goal and think, man, oh man, for a guy that's constantly beating himself up, especially in the media, saying, I got to have this, I got to have that, I got to be better. That's one where I feel like maybe, like you've heard it said on other shows, maybe you got to stop worrying about, giving the media what they want and start caring more about, in the moment. I feel like that's part of what I said about him in the past is he's such a nice guy. He's such a good guy. He says what you want to hear, but he was noodles. Jamie McLennan, who said it on Overdrive recently, like he was that goalie. He said, I overthought things way too much. And that's what separates kind of the number ones, the main, the workhorses from the guys who just can never get it done. We've seen the track record of Campbell over the last couple of years. He never really, got to his potential, reach that potential, and we slowly started to see it here in Toronto. Not saying it's over already, but I wonder if maybe Campbell is that guy that continuously goes back into his own brain and is constantly getting nitpicking and too hard on himself at times, especially the way we hear him carry himself at the end of a game. So my overall point is I found it funny. He didn't say specifically I have to have this or this goal at the end of the game last night in his post game press conference. Shout out to the title of the show, but maybe that's part of Leafs PR saying, listen, you don't have to go so deep on it if somebody's coached him on it or whatever. But yeah, I think it's something you have to point out when he lets in a goal like that, so soft. And he does play a certain way where you're going, all right, like this guy battles. When something like that goes in, you wonder how quickly he's going to rebound. Are they going to start him next game? Is he going to play great? Or is this just going to continue that slump? That's really the only question I've got with Campbell, because everything else has been the numbers speak for themselves. He's a great team guy. He looks fine in the net. It's just the odd little question mark, and he hasn't reached a potential to kind of, not think about that, right? The same way Freddie almost had the pedigree, you'd let a few go. So I guess it remains to be seen. We'll have to just keep watching, keep trotting Campbell out and expecting him to make those saves. But what do you think? Is he the kind of guy that'll constantly be, in his own head, or is there eventually a moment where he'll break out of this and stop, worrying about every single little goal?
Two things. You gotta have, it's like a baseball. I think it's a baseball phrase. You gotta have a short memory
Yeah,
in professional
gotta have
sports, right?
amnesia,
In
right?
baseball, you have 162 games, so you have to have a short memory when you have a bad game or a bad stretch. Same goes for a goaltender. You can't let what happened last game or the last 2 games or 5 games dictate what you're going to do in the future, in the present, in the game you're in. Jack Campbell does seem like that kind of guy to me. But my other point is, wouldn't it be nice to have Frederick Anderson to stick in when Jack Campbell is in this sort of a slump to stop the snowball? Vice versa, the same way, because Fred can be the same way. He can get to a point where things start to snowball and he's not playing a good
Yep.
position or position goaltending. So this is why I've been saying that this team is its best with Frederick Anderson and Jack Campbell as 1A, 1B starting goaltenders, neither one carrying the workload. But the going to the whole getting in your whole head thing, that comes with experience. Not being or not doing that comes with experience, because Frederick Anderson is facing 1,700 to 2,000 shots a year on him and playing 60 games a season. He knows when to turn it off. He knows when to shut people out, and he knows how to keep a clean headspace for a majority of the time. Maybe not when he's injured, like Bruce Boudreau has said in past interviews. When Freddie's injured, he doesn't play the best. He doesn't battle through it very well. But yeah, on a majority basis, Frederick Anderson knows how to shut people out and just play his position, and that's what Jack Campbell hasn't had the ability to do, I guess, or the opportunity to do, because he has never been the guy, right? He's never had to deal with this. If he was a slump, it was always, oh, he's the backup goaltender. We expect that. But now here in Toronto, Leaf Nation has taken the entire weight of the franchise and just thrown it right on this guy's shoulders, like Atlas holding up the earth, if you want to have a Greek reference there, Greek god reference. He's crumbling under the pressure. We can see it. It's happening. The 11-game win streak was all well and good, but he had an 800 or a sub 900 save percentage even in the last couple games of that 11-game win streak. So we could see the pressure start to get to him, and he was just taking advantage of having his team outscore the other team.
See, I don't think it looked like the pressure had got to him at all in that game. You know what I mean? Up until that final shot that ends up being the game winner. I thought he played great going right into that OT. I just thought Braden Holtby was the better goalie, but I'm with you here. Like, can he get out from under this what feels like a snowball? And because we've seen Freddie skating, you almost start to wonder, is Freddie going to be available at some point to step in and do this, or maybe is David Reddick good enough to carry the mail for them? But I think we are starting to hit that crossroads where you go from Campbell's won 11 straight and is supplanting this guy as the number one from here on out. And wow, look how good his contract is. And there's another year on it. And we don't even have to worry about Freddie Anderson ever again. It's now hitting that crossroads where you go, okay, maybe there's a reason this guy's never hit his potential. And it's because these slumps, they start to point out or highlight his real weakness, which may not even be a physical weakness. It may just be a mental weakness. And we're not really, we're just speculating, right? We're not saying this is what Campbell is, but it's almost similar to the wins where the numbers or it speaks for itself. The way he even talks about a loss or talks about a bad goal. Um, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a goalie like Freddie that says nothing and still goes through these slumps and still kind of has some question marks, or a guy like Campbell where you can see he's a little bit less of an elite goalie, but more of a battler, but every time he lets something in and every time he has a bad game, he kind of seems to pile on himself. What would you prefer as a fan? Because I'm not sure what I prefer right now.
I want the latter, and not just because I'm a Freddie guy, but I'll bring it back to baseball again. The best pitcher is a pitcher who doesn't wear his emotions on his face, right? And I feel like Jack Campbell wears his emotions out front. Everybody can see them. So if he's
Okay.
a little bit irked, or that's on the ice, man. That's not just for us. He's
Yeah.
not like, he's showing that, and the Vancouver Canucks can see that, and the Winnipeg Jets can see that, and the Ottawa Senators can see that. They know that he's under his own skin, and he's like, got to be better, Jack. You got to be better. Whereas with Frederick Anderson,
They got no
quiet,
clue. Yeah.
no clue, right? And there are times where Freddie has shown his emotion in the game. He's a human being. It happens. But
But you
more
prefer the
often than not,
stoic Freddie.
yeah,
Yeah.
I prefer the it doesn't even have to be Fred. I just prefer a stoic goaltender
Yeah.
because then the other team doesn't know what's coming, right? It's nice for me and for you to have a goaltender who tells us what's going on, because then we can talk about it and really dive deep into it. But if we're talking from a fan's perspective and not a journalist perspective, not a broadcaster's perspective, yeah, I want the guy that doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeve, because I don't want the other team knowing when he's down, because that's when they really take advantage.
Yeah, and I'm fully aware that I'm over romanticizing this whole idea. Like Jack Campbell is an NHL goalie that has won games as a starter. He's not got a pedigree, but that doesn't mean he's not like an NHL starter, right? So I'm not trying to say like, just because this guy beats himself up after a loss or after a bad goal means he can't hang in the league. I'm just saying I'm not sure currently what I prefer as a fan or what I'd prefer if I was maybe playing in front of the guy because like the stick taps are nice, right? As a defenseman, like you love having your goalie come out and acknowledge a great play or just respect you being there. But at a certain point, I feel like sometimes that maybe is a distraction from the game or can take away from the focus of the game. Where it's like, listen, I understand I'm doing great, man. I don't need a stick tap or things like that. Again, I'm over romanticizing this whole idea because I don't play in the NHL, so I've got really no experience. But I just feel like you said, a guy that kind of wears his heart on his sleeve and shows his emotion throughout the game. Though that's what a stick tap on a player would be, right? Most goalies don't care to even show that emotion, but he's making that effort throughout a 60-minute game to do that. So I don't know. It just that kind of constantly is I guess the divide between fans is maybe one goalie's better, one goalie's a little bit more of a personality, one goalie's numbers spoke for themselves for so long, and the other one hadn't played well for a year and a half. And of course, I'm comparing Freddie and Jack, right? But in the end, it's just hard to say. When now that we've seen Freddie skating, of course, we're all kind of hoping that when we get to playoff time, you're confident enough to put him in the net and he looks the way he should. But again, it's been 18 months or so of really a question mark between the pipes. So let's move on to kind of like the story of last game or last
before
night's game.
before we move on, I just want one last point, because you're comparing Freddie to Jack. Let's compare what you saw last night. Compare Jack to Braden Holtby, because you have the stoic versus the emotional goaltender. Braden Holtby lets a goal in, squirts the water up in the air, follows it with his eyes, recenters. That's it. You don't see anything. You don't really see much emotion at all out of that guy. That's the kind of guy. Now, has he snapped? Yes, he snapped. Like I said, these guys are human, but that's the kind of guy I want. A guy who just, okay, that was a goal. Nothing I can do about it now. Forget about it. Move on to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. Leafs come out flying. They're dominant in the first period. I thought multiple chances were created by the top line, even in the first like 20 minutes before the power play. Then you get Spezza with chances on the PP. You've got Muzzin jumping into offensive rushes. It could have easily been 3-0 within the first 10, 15 minutes of the game. And then it's just the single Nylander goal that makes the difference, right? Holtby does, like you say, look dialed in. But I thought Vancouver looked like crap. They looked fatigued. They had almost no zone time in the first. It was just all Leafs. And going in the second, it's still all Leafs. The power play is still historically abysmal. Right now, they're 2 for a million. But again, Spezza has an excellent opportunity there in the first. And somehow it stays out just because that's the theme of the Leafs power play. There's really no answer to it unless you're going to bring in somebody other than Manny Malhotra to completely revive the whole thing. Like I'm assuming they're trying different things. You're seeing different setups. You've heard people talk about maybe starting to utilize
Well,
behind the net, but at the same time, it's nothing's happening, nothing's working. They got to maybe switch out some personnel. There's a lot of different things, and we can weigh on that. But again, Willie scores the opening goal in his first game returning from COVID, so that's fun. And I thought the Leafs are dominant again, just basically the entire game. But Holtby steals it. The main story is the Edler hit on Hyman, but let's talk about the power play first. What do you think is going to change? How do you think you change it? What's going on here? Because again, 2 for a million chances. It's starting to become a real laughing stock here.
yeah, they got to stop telegraphing their power play. People know that they're trying to get it to Matthews for the one time, right? And you'll come at me and say everybody knows they're giving it to Ovechkin for the one time, but he seems to get it off all the time. It's different. I don't know. I can't explain how no one is able to cut Ovechkin off at that circle or at the dot there for that one timer. That has baffled me for years and years and years and years. I'm not an NHL player. Go ask an NHL player why they can't cut that off. But they are most certainly cutting Austin Matthews off. They're able to do that to him, and the Leafs are telegraphing it. So first things first, get Wayne Simmons off that first power play. He has not been himself since he's been back from that injury. He is playing on the fourth line for a reason. He hasn't had very much offensive impact at all since he's been back, and he needs to find his game. And you're not going to find it on the power play. That's not especially power play one. I would replace Wayne Simmons with Alex Galchenyuk on the first power play, just simply because he plays with Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews so much. They'll have the automatic chemistry. You add John Tavares in there, stick Morgan Riley on the back end, boom, there's your power play one. And it's not on Manny Malhotra, man. Like, can Leafs Nation get off the coach? He's not the one who's got the skates on, who's out there on the ice, who's giving up the puck, who's not putting the puck on net, and who's not getting these goals. The Leafs have been snake bitten. Yes, that's obvious, but eventually skill needs to win out, and that's what's going to have to happen here. The skill guys are going to have to figure this out, and I think it just starts with getting Wayne Simmons off that first power play.
Well, I had it written down here. I wanted to say Thornton, Engvall, Simmons going into last night's game. In the last 20 games, Thornton 1 point, Engvall 4, Simmons 3, and that goes along with what you're saying. Like, two of those guys are power play guys.
Yeah, it's not going to work with those guys. It really isn't, and it's shown. I don't know if it's a respect thing with Keefe, wanting to keep Thornton in there on power play too.
Kind
but
of feels like it. If
his name really slow, Ryan.
But
really
if those guys
slow.
didn't have those names, like, we wouldn't even be giving them the opportunity right now. So I do agree with you. It does kind of at times feel a bit like a respect thing. Like, I understand you're at this position in the division, and I understand, like, it's not necessarily garbage time, but, like, we think the hit was unnecessarily. The injury on Hyman is we're in a terribly unnecessary point of the season right now to be playing games that could lead to injuries and all that. But we're talking about guys who, like, if they're not going to get going now, how do you expect them to get going when you're in the playoffs, right? So those two names alone, Thornton and Simmons, I'm a little bit concerned. Now, you've got a Nick Foligno coming into the lineup anytime soon, so maybe that's going to rejuvenate some guys. Maybe you've got some older guys contributing when you just add him to the group of older guys. Maybe he's a big piece. But it's interesting how those two guys, big signings in the offseason, came in like bats out of hell, right? Thornton was on that top line playing great. Simmons, before the injury, net front presence, banging home rebounds, just good in his own zone, fast. And both of those guys are really just, again, it's like you said, it feels just like we're almost just respecting them and giving them, just trotting them out there instead of maybe keeping them hungry, taking ice time from them, and giving that healthy sense of competitiveness we thought we had in that bottom six. So that was been the whole point, right? Keep it competitive and keep guys hungry. That's why Barabanov sat out, and you name it, right? So it's hard to say what's going on there.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at it. The Leafs brought those guys in for experience in the playoffs, but you're not going to get that experience, or you're not going to be able to take advantage of that, because I don't see how you can
train.
Well, yeah, I don't see how you can put these guys in the playoffs. Riley Nash, Nick Foligno. There are guys where you can slot in.
Spezza is still effective. Spezza, of all the old guys, is the one that we're like, holy crap, what a deal, right? But it's Thornton 100%. And Simmons that you're kind of wondering, like, can they jump on said moving train when the playoffs get going? Maybe that is why they're getting those opportunities over and over right now. But, like, we're not liking what we see.
No, and like I said, I think they end up sitting in the playoffs more than they end up playing. The Hyman hit. Let's not bury the lead anymore.
Nope.
Alex Edler suspended 2 games for the hit.
Hyman's scheduled to have an MRI.
I will give
today in Vancouver, by the way.
So yeah, I assumed that was coming. I will give Edler the benefit of the doubt only on one thing: 3-minute shift. Coming off of COVID, you're just trying to get a body part in front of him.
Lazy.
Was the hit bad? Yes. Was it lazy? Yes. Was it dirty? He's not a dirty player. He's not. Not normally. And so I'm not going to slap that label on him, but it was definitely a lazy
he's a dirty player, John. I think this season, and I think Steve Dangle put it pretty well in a tweet last night, like, Edler's sick and tired of getting his ass walked by the Leafs. Jason Spezza single-handedly scored a hat trick on Alex Edler and Thatcher Demko earlier in the season. If you recall, This guy got walked so many times. He had to turn and two-hand Spezza. A veteran in the league like Edler himself, he had to turn and two-hand him because he was sick and tired of it. I don't think Edler belongs in the league anymore. I think he's lost so many steps to his game that you put him out there for a 3-minute shift. That's retirement. I'm
Yeah, but
sorry, he's done.
that's just frustration. That's not dirty.
Well,
There's a
then
difference in,
is
in
it?
being dirty and intending to injure, and another thing in being frustrated that you don't have what it takes to
Yeah, but
do what you want
at
to
the end
do.
of a 3-minute shift, if you're gonna stick your leg out, I'm sorry, but like that is just a lack of awareness. Like there's no accident there. You have to think to stick your leg out. Either
Well,
you
no,
stick your leg
it
out or
wasn't
you
an
stay by the
accident.
guy.
It wasn't an accident. It was out of necessity because he wanted to make contact. He went for the shoulder hit and
Right.
Hyman moved out of the way. And this is the mentality of, oh no, I'm not getting walked again. I'm going to
Exactly.
get a piece. I'll take a tripping penalty if I need to,
So I don't think he
but
belongs in the league
I'm
anymore.
gonna I'm gonna take a piece. It's not dirty. He didn't mean to knee on knee Zach Hyman and take him out of the game. He did not want to get a 5-minute major and get
Just like
kicked
he
out of the
didn't
game.
mean to two-hand slash Jason Spezza
No,
when he
no.
got walked again.
But
Like
there's a
I'm so sick
difference. That's
when a guy's lost a
frustration. It's
step.
not dirt. It's not a dirty
No,
player,
no, no.
Ryan.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. But what I'm trying to say is we can't go here and say because Alex Edler's whole career has been squeaky clean, which I disagree. I think he's sneaky good, like sneaky dirty, like most players that are veterans in the league. But when a guy's career has been this long, I'm sorry, but they know better, man. They know better. And when they start going from I can keep up and I can actually play defense and close a gap to turning around two-handing guys or sticking knees out. I'm sorry, but you've lost enough of a step. You've gone from not being a dirty player to having only one answer to being able to keep up, and it's playing like trash, man. Like that's my only point is, yeah, sure you can say he wasn't a dirty player, but the last like 5 to 10 examples of I've seen of Alex Edler, it's no foot speed and hooking, slashing, tripping, sticking out a knee to keep up. Like the guy doesn't belong in the league, is what I'm trying to say. And I think he does play pretty dirty now, just to survive.
I mean, the league has passed him by, based on speed and skill. But
I just
I just
I don't like what
I
happened. You can be
oh
rattled
no,
as a Leaf fan,
no,
right? You're allowed
oh
to be
yeah, no,
upset.
you're allowed to be. Oh, you should have seen me last night.
Look
I
at my
was
tweets.
right away as soon as that happened. But I saw a Leaf down in the fetal position on the ice, and I thought he got hit in the head. I'm going to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he got crunched on the boards and hit in the head, and I was like, oh my god, Leaf down. That's a major right away. I hadn't seen a replay. I was like, that's a major right away because I thought it was head contact on the boards at the rounded glass on the bench, like almost like Chara and Patches.
Yeah.
I believe it was Patches. And so I was expecting a 5-minute major on that, and then you see exactly what happened, and the knee it happened to. That's the knee he had surgery on in 2019, Ryan. That's
Well, the
the
knee
right
that
knee.
his coach forced him to play through an entire playoff series on before he got surgery too. Don't forget.
Yeah, yeah, against the Bruins, I believe it was. And so he had partial repairs done to the ACL. You know what that tells me? A full job's not done, Ryan. If I'm like I've had full full reconstruction surgery on my knee, every ligament, everything redone.
Oh, nice.
I know what that's like. I don't know what it's like as a professional athlete, but I know what that's like, and I know probably that a doctor would have told him after getting partial surgery that eventually the whole thing would need to be done because it's not going to be as structurally sound as it dealt with that pain. I know what that feels like. And it is not good. It sounds like a car accident inside your body when things like that tear. And I fully expect Zach Hyman. I will be glad to be wrong, Ryan, but coming from a history of knee injuries, I fully expect Zach Hyman to be done for the year. And the addition of Nick Foligno does not have near the impact it would have if you have Zach Hyman in the lineup. You're basically getting an older Zach Hyman with Nick Foligno. And so
I see. I look at that from kind of a positive point of view. I wasn't sure how important of a fit Nick Foligno was. Remember we had the whole debate about Foligno or Hall, and you had guys on both sides of it. Why would you get another scorer? Or maybe the fit is Foligno. Just the fact that Hyman goes down, and okay, at least I've got somebody like a Nick Foligno coming into the lineup, who should be a little because he's not. The game hasn't seemingly passed him by like we're kind of feeling it out with Simmons and Thornton, right? This guy is more of a guy who like what you're getting with him. That's what we say about Zach, right? So I think you're right in a sense of like he's an older Hyman, but like for him to still be the captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets, he's only 33 or 34. Like he's not at that Like we're talking
He's not
Marlowe's.
ancient. He's not
Yeah,
Thornton's or
Marlowe's
Marlowe's age.
breaking
Yeah.
records of NHL games, right? And we had a guy a guy in Patrick Marleau over here, and he did not really do a lot. I think Foligno's younger. Excuse me. Better cough that out. It's the COVID. So Foligno's younger. He's going to come here with some fire. And if he heard in his interview with Overdrive when he first came to Toronto, it's he hasn't played with older guys in so long. He said the oldest guy he played with was Brandon Dubinsky, and that other than that, it was just a super young team. So for Foligno to be coming into this mix, yeah, he's older, but I think he's going to bring a lot of what Hyman would bring in terms of that grit, that toughness on the puck. I don't expect him to drop the gloves, but we know he can, and he's a mean-looking guy. So it's you can't. This is the two major takeaways that I had from last night's game. You can't keep championing the cause of Jack Campbell when he shows you that kind of stuff 3 games into what we'd call a slump, and you'll never be able to replace Zach Hyman. So there's really 2 takeaways from that game. Other than that, awesome game from the Maple Leafs, right? I thought they were dominant, and Braden Holtby just shut the door. Even when they did the video review of the puck that most likely crossed the line, but you just have no video, like no conclusive evidence. Holtby's just amazing last night. And I sent you a message. There was like 5 minutes left in a 2-2 game, and I said, it doesn't matter the score. Holtby's the first star. Like even if the Leafs win, Holtby is legitimately the first star of this game. So again, congratulations to the Vancouver Canucks for winning the 2021 Moral Victory Cup. I think it's very awesome that they shoved it in Nylander's face for scoring in his first game back from like a week and a half off with COVID. All of the fans on Twitter and from Vancouver's fan base were so upset that William Nylander and the Maple Leafs would even celebrate a goal against a team that's just so down on their luck right now. So congratulations on winning your Stanley Cup this year. And unfortunately, Alex Edler, like that probably is the end of the road for him. But overall, like an entertaining game, and a game that was supposed to be tonight has now been rescheduled for tomorrow. It's a Leafs Vancouver Canucks game, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Can't wait.
They were supposed to be Saturday, Monday, and changed to Sunday, Tuesday. Foligno should be in the lineup by game 2 of the 3-game set with the Jets. And he could play game 1, but I think they'll give him some time to practice with the team because he comes off of quarantine, I believe, just before game 1 with the Jets there. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see Foligno getting back in the lineup or getting into the lineup with the Leafs. But yeah, like I said, the Foligno acquisition is more important now that you lose Zach Hyman, but it's less impactful, right? So it's more important because you have a guy who can pseudo replace what you're losing with Zach Hyman, but it's less impactful because now you don't have Zach Hyman, so you don't have 2 of these guys. You just got 1 again, and yeah. So you wish you had them both. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, man. I really do. But that looked really bad. That was flush right on, and it was at a decent speed. So
I've already accepted the fact that Hyman may not be back, even in the playoffs. I've already accepted it, and so that if he does return, if we do hear some good news, then obviously that's all it is good news. It's not like, oh, this is exactly what we thought, because really in the end, you have to just assume that that's why I'm so rattled. That's why I think Edler, it's an unnecessary game. The guy's already shown flashes of not being able to keep up, so kind of turning to the dirty play. And what's the difference between that and being pissed off at Tom Wilson for being in the prime of his career and ruining guys' careers? What is the difference? There isn't one. They don't belong in the league. They don't. You're not out here injuring people. If you can't keep up, you're done. I don't care what your name is, right? And so again, you hear the passion in me. That's how offended you are when you see that hit on a guy who's so important to a team from a guy who's such a like literally the least important player in the league, one of them, and on one of the least important teams in the league on a tire fire franchise. You're sitting there thinking, what an unnecessary game. You're right, everybody. We shouldn't have played this game. We shouldn't have. But for a completely different reason. Of course, in seriousness, the Canucks have gone through such a bout of COVID that you really hope and pray that everybody does rebound from that and it's completely healthy. We know that there's a scare with Brandon Sutter and his wife, his pregnant wife, even contracted COVID. So again, thoughts and prayers to anybody who got it, who is still battling it, who may never be the same from it. All that, like we're seriously, we're sympathetic, but from a hockey point of view, ugly hit, unnecessary. You don't belong in the league. That's that simple.
Before we get out of the Vancouver Canucks and the Leafs, so going back to the trade deadline, seeing as we did our show before the trade deadline day. The Vancouver Canucks moved Adam Gaudette, and it was there was some intrigue surrounding that move because it has come out that it was most likely Adam Gaudette who brought the COVID into the locker room
Right.
for the Vancouver Canucks. And so people are asking, is this why the Vancouver Canucks moved Adam Gaudette? Because the trade wasn't a beneficial for the Canucks. They moved down like prospect wise by getting rid of Adam there, and so people there's a question out there in the hockey world if this was a retaliatory trade. Get this guy out of here because everyone in the locker room's pissed off because this guy brought COVID in and got everybody sick from doing something or whatnot, right? So be interesting. That we'll never know if that's the case, but I think that's the case. I'm gonna be honest, man. Like if that was me and I was in that locker room, I'd be pretty mad at the guy. It's not like he's the star player. It's not like it was Bo Horvat who brought it in.
I
right?
won't be surprised if we get confirmation on that. I'll put it that way. I won't be surprised if we get like a more of a source confirmation
on Chicklets.
Yeah, somebody. More news around the league. Adam Lowry signed a 5-year extension with the Jets, so they're going to be solid up the middle with Dubois, Scheifele, and Lowry. Like he's a monster. I don't think he gets enough attention too because they played in the West for so long. And unless you're a diehard Jets fan, you have no clue how impactful Adam Lowry is.
Yeah, Patrick Laine, Adam Lowry. A couple of years back, if someone were to tell you that Adam Lowry is better than Patrick Laine and would be on the Jets longer, you probably call them insane because of what Patrick Laine was doing with the amount of goals he was putting in the net. But yeah, now we're in this future. We're looking at what Adam Lowry is doing versus what Patrick Laine is doing, and Patrick Laine is obviously
we thought Laine was the
talented winger in that debate.
Oh, yeah. And we thought Laine was the guy who could, make everybody around him play better. But a segue into our next point, like one of his most, newest acquired teammates, Max Domi, who's a Columbus Blue Jacket as of this season. He's got 19 points in 46 games. Just looking this up here, 12 assists, 7 goals. He's a minus 18 with 67 penalty minutes, and he's going to be a healthy scratch tonight for the Columbus Blue Jackets against the Florida Panthers. Not really a surprise because it's a Torts team that he would scratch a guy with the name like Max Domi. But then when you're me and you're looking it up, you're going, oh my God, like I drafted this guy in fantasy this year and then had to drop him 2 weeks in because I was surprised he was doing nothing. And I thought to myself, what a dumb drop. You drafted Max Domi for a reason. He's on a new team. He plays like a monster. He can get points. Dude, he's having an awful season. What is going on? He's on his third team? Fourth team?
He's he was drafted by the Yotes and then traded to the Canadiens.
Had a good first season in Montreal and then wore out his welcome real quick. He's worn out his welcome in Columbus almost immediately. A minus 18, like the points are fine. 19 points, 46 games. Sure, Columbus sucks. You can't be a minus 18, Max. Like you can't be that bad. What's going on?
The thing is, and I said this on a previous podcast. I don't know if it was with you or with another on another podcast. But the thing with Max Domi is eventually it turns out to be that Max Domi is the problem, right? Like the Coyotes, they weren't a good team. He didn't want to play there, right? Okay. We'll get you to the Canadiens. Oh, the Canadiens were trying to turn him into a center. He's not a center and blah, 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 and this and that. And okay, we'll get you out of there. That it's not a good situation with the coach and with the general manager. So we'll get you to another team. And then you get him to Columbus and he just does nothing. He's complete dog water. He's just horrible, right?
Just cheeks, as the kids say.
Yeah. It's not good at all. I got that phrase from my nephew.
You said dog water. I had
my 12-year-old nephew. I had to go to my 12-year-old nephew to get what people are saying today, right? I sound like an old dad when I try to speak lingo. Anyway, he's played absolute garbage for the Blue Jackets, and eventually it's going to get to the point where people are like, well, it's Max Domi is the issue, right? Just like, well, Alex Galchenyuk is the issue. And you know what I say to that, Ryan? Come on home. Come on home, Max.
He signed
Come on home.
Decent contract in Columbus, so didn't he? Like one that just kind of puts him on this overpaid based on what he can do now.
Yeah, but it also puts him puts him in a position where you could force that team to eat a lot of that money and then get him on the super cheap and then rebuild him and build him into that third line player that he would be on this team. And I mean, hell, maybe
Yo,
they buy him out. Maybe they
he
buy him
really
out. Who
is.
knows?
He really is starting to carve that career path that like he's gonna come home and be fucking Ty Domi's son on the Leafs. Why not?
And the Leafs would take him based on namesake alone. They'd take him if they could get someone to eat some of that contract. And I could see him playing very, very well behind the forwards on this team,
He
right?
liked
And
Montreal. The market was his kind of thing. I don't want to say it is Max. I think Montreal wasn't the greatest fit for him because they wanted him to be like kind of a more of a higher end guy, more like a Galchenyuk situation. And look what we're doing with him here. That's why you're kind of intriguing me with this conversation because I think you have a point. Like there's two things. He used to be way more touted, a guy that you wouldn't expect you could get your hands on because like he's more of a builder of an offense. Like he's more of the center of the offense or a nucleus. And again, it's looking more and more so like he's maybe a bit part and you bring him to a market that he kind of loves. Like he loves a big market, and you put him in a situation where he doesn't have to be the nucleus of the offense. He can be a Hyman type guy on the second or third line. Like, shut up. That is exactly where he belongs. And I don't know how long it would take, but I would move out. I would move out a Kerfoot contract to get that done. You know what I mean? In the offseason, I would do things
one
like
for one, you
crazy
do
like
Max
that.
for Kerfoot. Yeah.
Oh, that's not. I don't. I think you'd have to probably sweeten it a bit, but not a lot. But I agree.
I mean,
Like
it
it's
really depends, man. Like Kerfoot's not bad. He's
and
not horrible, but he's not worth the money he's making, right? Like
and you can't
he,
really rely on Max up the middle, similar to Kerfoot. It's more of a guy that you'd put on a third, second line wing.
yeah, he's
Five
definitely a
ten, one
winger. He's not
ninety,
coming
same
into Toronto
size.
as a center. No, for sure, not coming to Toronto as a center. I don't know who you put on the center line for that third line, but that's something you could figure it out.
Hmm.
In the off season, but it intrigues me. He's under contract with another team, but we can wish and we can dream. I've been wanting Max Domi to come to Toronto since he was in Arizona, but maybe he wasn't ready to come to Toronto then. Maybe we needed a more beaten up and broken down
Yeah.
Max Domi so that they could then rebuild him and repair him like the $1 million man. And we've got the technology, we've got the ability. Let's do it. Let's get Max Domi to the level that he should be playing at, wearing the jersey he should be wearing. John Tortorella, though, only doing what he's got to do. Right? I don't hate John Tortorella for this move. He's only doing what he's got to do. The guy's playing garbage, and he's a coach who's not going to put up with that. So sit him.
Just a surprise to see a guy like Max Domi sit out. On the other end of things, a guy like Patrick Marleau is going to play 1768. And yes, that is the all-time NHL record for games played. He's going to pass Gordie Howe. I think Gordie played when he was in his 50s. So Marleau got it done a little bit quicker. The other crazy thing about Gordie Howe is there's a whole bunch of undocumented games from the WHL, like the World Hockey League. Yeah, whatever that was named, right? World Hockey League?
WHA?
WHA, World Hockey Association.
I
Thank you.
believe it was WHA. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a ton of games even there that don't count towards Gordie Howe's like NHL record, but Marleau is going to pass what is currently the Gordie Howe 1767. So congratulations to him. And my main takeaway is I saw a photograph of Marleau as a San Jose Shark, like 1996, I think it was. I can't remember what year he was drafted now, but he looked identical to what he looks now. You know how some guys like your face gets heavier or it changes shape or you just get a more of a dad look to you. This guy looks almost identical to what he looked like when he was 19 years old. Even the 5 o'clock shadow, it's kind of crazy. Same hairstyle, same smirk on his face. And I'm like, man, some people, they just don't change at all with age.
I
Marleau is
mean,
one of them.
I could like obviously you could tell with there's some aging on it, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, he does
He
look.
looks the
He
same.
hasn't really. He just looks like an older version of that guy. It's just but like not older as in like wrinkles and and
No.
whatnot. Just
Whereas you look at
just
anybody
age.
else, look at anyone else, like even Ovi, right? You look at Ovi when he's drafted until now, and you're like, oh my god, he turned into an ogre. Oh
Ovi's another story, and I think Ovi's older than he actually says he is. So
yeah, that's been a great debate for so long. What's his
yeah,
birth certificate really say?
yeah. Well, there was I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a Russian player who did that in the OHL. They fudged his passport or whatnot, and he was older. He was like 2 years older than everybody playing against teenagers as like a 20 or 21-year-old, and got drafted. And yeah, he went his whole career without it being found out. And eventually, the internet and internet detectives they figured that stuff out. But yeah, I fully believe that eventually it'll come out. When Ovechkin's old and more gray than he
Yeah,
is right now, because he's pretty gray right now. it'll come out in some sort of biography that he's actually 2 years older than he said he is. So
Is it the bench warmers where that one guy comes in and he's like an old man with a beard and he's like pitching and they go ask him for his birth certificate and it's just like in crayon it's written I am 12.
yes, it is. Yeah, and he's all drunk and stuff, and
Yeah, and they're like, get this guy out of here. We got to check his birth certificate. It's just literally in
yeah.
green crayon. I am 12.
You know
So,
what it reminds me of? I used to do the play-by-play for the Durham Lords basketball,
all right on.
and we had a game where this one guy came in. He was 40 years old, playing on the opposing team's basketball team. And I guess because he was a student, he was eligible. He was a former bus driver. A 40-year-old former bus driver with a huge boiler was playing for the opposing team, and I had to sit there and call this. And it's like, it was quite an interesting
Oh my
game
gosh.
to talk about. That topic definitely dominated the night. I could not get over how this guy. I had a buddy who was watching the game there, and he kept screaming out, "Go, Dad! Yeah, that's my dad." It wasn't his dad, but just,
Honestly though.
yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
Holy
Yeah.
smokes.
Anyway,
That is great.
we got to get this thing back on the rails. So
Oh yeah.
I had to tell that story.
I think that's it for NHL for us. I want to jump into MLB here now, but I normally have the next Leaf games on the schedule. It's been a little bit of a hectic things all changed up. So the schedule I used to have says we play tonight. They don't play tonight. They play tomorrow night, and then I think Thursday is the next game. So I think the next time we have a podcast, we'll actually have the schedule back up and in working order. But over to the
Three
MLB.
against Winnipeg. 3 against Winnipeg after this one against Vancouver. That's all they need to know.
That's all you need to know. In the MLB, Cody Bellinger's out with the hairline fracture, so the poor Dodgers are going to be missing, I guess, one of their bats, even though they're such a strong team over there. And then in the Indians, Shane Bieber is the first ever pitcher to have 10 plus Ks through his first 4 games of the season. I saw that record and that stat, and I thought, man, the game that's this old, I'm surprised that there's not one guy to have done that yet. So congrats to Shane Bieber. He's Canadian, is he not?
You're putting me on the spot here. I don't know.
Okay, well, forget it. I
I
can
know
cut
Mike
that.
Soroka is Canadian, but I don't know.
No, he's
about
American.
Shane Bieber.
Okay, maybe I just confused him with Justin. Clearly, I didn't confuse him with Justin, but I don't know why I thought he was Canadian. Anyway, the Jays dropped 3 of 4 in this series to KC, and in the last 2 games, it's been Salvador Perez. Oh my God, with back-to-back dagger home runs, game-winning home runs. The offense kind of dried up a little bit yesterday with just 2 hits, and I personally thought Robbie Ray was pretty solid on the mound. He gave up some hits, but he strands 10 runners through 5 scoreless innings. So good to see Robbie Ray able to pull something out of a hat like that, and then just not getting any run support ends up being a loss. That's the fact when your offense dries up like that, you really you can't do much when you're Robbie Ray, and you don't like Biggio struggling here at third base. So I wanted to get your take on maybe what could happen, or just your overall thoughts on what's happening right now with Biggio.
Well, in regards to the Royal Series, Sal Perez, 2 2-run home runs. That's the difference in 2 games. I'll take that. He's not going to do that often. No. You're not going to lose by 2 runs that often. This offense is pretty prolific. They're without 2 big pieces in Teoscar Hernandez and George Springer. Pitching is way outperforming what we expected this pitching rotation to be. And absolutely. I'm super impressed with the left-handers in the rotation. I'm super impressed with everyone but Tanner Roark. I don't like him. I don't think he should be on this team. I don't think he should be playing professional baseball anymore. He just goes out there and gets his tits lit every single time. So, yeah, the rotation really good. In regards to Biggio, to me, he's a second base, shortstop, outfield depth guy.
They just don't have room for him there though, right? Because they've got second and short pretty much sorted. Like the Biggio won't see much action there, I wouldn't think.
Do you? And I can't remember his name now. I want to say Zimmer. I don't know for sure.
Ryan Zimmer?
There was a guy, he played for the Tampa Bay Rays, and he played for Zobrist.
Oh, Zobrist. I was thinking Ryan Zimmerman, but yeah, Ben Zobrist.
Ben Zobrist.
Just an everywhere guy.
That is who Kevin Biggio is to me at his best. When he's fully developed, he's Ben Zobrist. He's able to play short, second, maybe not so much third. He seems to struggle there. It could come with time. It's mostly arm strength and reaction for me at third base. That they call it the hot corner for a reason. You have to be right on your game down there. Yeah. You can get eaten up by a ball very, very, very easily. So yeah, he's a Ben Zobrist type to me. There is room for him on this team, but his bat needs to push him onto the team. And right now his bat is not doing that. Normally he's a guy whose on base percentage is higher than his average, or a lot higher than his average. It's built up by his base on balls as opposed to him getting on base with his bat, right? His eye is getting him on there. He's walking more than other people on the team. Vladdy Guerrero seems to be the guy who's walking a lot this year. His vision has increased exponentially.
Oh yeah, right from day one, like that. Even just game one against Garrett Cole, he looked like he's dialed in on the plate. Just
In
absolutely
regards
dialed in. Sorry.
in regards to third base, give me a platoon of Espinal and Panic. Joe Panic has won World Series for the San Francisco, I almost said 49ers, San Francisco Giants, and he's been a utility guy. He knows what he's doing over there at third base. Espinal looked really good in game 2 of the doubleheader at third base. So let me see those guys there at third base. Give me a platoon there. BGO, you can call it an injury if it's a hand contusion, fine. But when he comes back, he needs to be outfield and second base, shortstop depth, maybe even at first base. But that's kind of full here with Vladdy and with Vladdy and Rowdy Tellez, what they're doing from the first base bag. The last thing I want to see, though, Ryan, the very last thing I want to see is Vlad Guerrero back at third, because he's looked so fantastic at first base. I think putting him over at third is going to be taking steps back in his development.
I agree with you there. Like, all we've ever had is complaints of him at third base, even though it's his natural position, right? He played that all growing up. As far as I know, he's considered like a third baseman, but not in the major leagues, not to our liking from what we've seen so far. Just seems like, I think you said it yourself. He tried a little bit too hard was it too hard at third base, or just wasn't really dialed? Yeah, like just trying a little bit too hard, and then eventually it's not gonna work out for you. I feel like he's happy at first, where I mean he's less of a liability. I think that's it. Just sometimes I feel like, I think earlier on in the season we saw him maybe go for a ball and realize, oh yeah, I'm just the first baseman, so let's let the right fielder or the center fielder grab that.
He
There's been
made
a
a
couple of
quick
times
adjustment at first. He made a quick adjustment at first in the first couple of games. And this is credit to Rowdy Tellez and not being afraid of the guy who's probably going to take your spot on the rotation or on the field. But in the first couple of games, we noticed Vlad was off the base. He was making wild stretches. And yes, that I said that was based on the throws. If you make better throws, he doesn't make those stretches. But what he was doing was he was putting his foot on the corner of the base, right? And Rowdy Tellez taught him, and he made an automatic adjustment and does it in game now. He now puts his foot on the long flat side of the base as opposed to the corner, and he pushes off of that to get as much extension as he can get. And so he wasn't doing that at third base. He wasn't making those adjustments to be better at third base. And we've already seen him play great defense to start and then get better at first base in his defense. We do not need this guy going back to third base. We need him to continue as a first baseman and to continue to get better and build. If anything, he was a liability at third, and he's an asset at first.
Yeah, whereas I would have just expected, okay, it might not even work out at first, and he'll end up a DH, a career DH. Yeah, and at this point, like the way you're making it sound, he's learning on the fly, and he's actually becoming more valuable than you thought. So now you've got a guy who can hit bombs and play a pretty good first base. Like there's been a lot of those guys in history that are built just like Vladdy, actually.
Yeah, Prince Fielder comes to mind. I mean, he wasn't the best. He wasn't like, we're not talking like top fielders here, but you want to talk body type. Prince Fielder was a pretty good first baseman, and he could smash the ball with the best of them.
Yeah. Anything else we want to talk about the Jays before we tee off the series leading heading into Boston tomorrow at 7?
Man, I don't know if I want to talk about the Jays, but the Boston Red Sox, I don't know what the heck they put in
top
those
of the division
Wheaties,
right now. Yeah.
Not or 10 and 11 and 6, 11 and 6 now. After today's game, and leading the AL East after losing 3 straight to the Baltimore Orioles to start the season. They went on a 9-game tear. Like, I don't know what the heck they're putting in these guys' cereal, but man, oh man, they've come to life, and it almost reminds me. There was one year where they finished last in the AL East, and then the very next year they won the World Series.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it almost reminds me of that situation where people were expecting nothing out of the Red Sox, and the Red Sox are like, oh, well, let me show you what we can do.
Yeah, like they moved off of Mookie Betts out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, it's going to be a couple of down years. They don't want to pay the guy. They're more willing to kind of rebuild what they got and kind of stay stagnant for now, maybe not go for it. Like that was the initial thing. Okay, they're clearly not going for much if they don't want to keep Mookie Betts around, and they're still a solid team. Like maybe that speaks to how weak the division is for them right now too. But I mean, they're still winning games, so that also, um, that helps them. It's just you look at the Yankees, man. That was the other point I wanted to make. Like they haven't been this bad in 20 plus years, 24 years. They're dead last in the division. And it's kind of a surprise to see them come out of the gate so slow when they're supposed to be some sort of stacked team. So, what's your answer there? How come they're faltering so much?
I have no idea. I don't know what is happening in the Bronx. And the fans have the same response. I know the fans are
Throwing
calling for the head
baseballs
of
on
the
the field.
manager. They're calling for the manager to be fired. It's only 15 games into the year, 162 games. I think you have to allow this team the time to work out of it. But it's one of those situations where it's like you can go out and you can put together the most expensive pieces on the marketplace, bring them all to one team. It does not mean it's going to work. It does not mean you're
Yeah.
going to end up being being World Series champions. And that almost seems like that's what's happening in New York. They spend a lot of money, they bring in a lot of high priced guys, and they just can't gel together. Um,
Do you want to
the
hear something
fact,
sad? Just to go along with that, there's a guy who played his whole career wanting to be a Yankee, just absolutely wanting to be a Yankee. Signs this year, plays 10 games. Jay Bruce, he retires. He's got a 118 batting average, and that's it. That's how it's going to go out for him. So it kind of
yeah,
just goes with the theme. Like they go out and get a guy that wants to come there, has a pretty good pedigree at being a pretty good hitter over the last like at least 5, 10 years of his career. He was pretty good. And of course, seeing a bit of a downturn as age kind of creeps up on him, but he plays 10 games, has a 118, and he's retiring. What the heck?
yeah. Ford and I don't know my Yankees too well, but first base is pretty full for the Yankees. And he barely made the team. Jay Bruce did. It was almost a surprise that Jay Bruce made the team. And there was one of their first basemen, and I sound like an amateur not knowing his name, but one of their first basemen got hurt, and he's going to be out um for half the season, give or take, but he's expected back halfway through the year. And maybe this is a situation where Yankees brass went to Jay Bruce and was like, we're not doing too good. It's not really working out here, Jay. And I think we want to send you to the minors. Do you really want to go down there,
Yeah,
or would you
fair.
rather just retire?
I
And
hadn't thought of it like that.
Jay Bruce is like, okay, you know what? It's time to call it a career. Didn't work out here. Sucks, but it's a situation where they're very deep at first base, and they want to get their younger guys some ABs, and they got a starter who's coming in a couple months who's just coming off of surgery. So yeah, it's a situation where Jay Bruce is just the league has passed him by. And
Yeah, like
you don't
Alex Edler.
I was just gonna say, like your favorite player, Alex Edler. The game has passed Jay Bruce by, and he's decided to call it a career, and what a career it was, man. He'll go down in history as a great slugger in the game in an era where people were like he came from a like there were steroids still very prevalent in Jay Bruce's career. Not him using, but like in the game,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So he came through an era and he was a slugger in an era where there were a lot of steroids. So as a guy who wasn't popped for it, that really has to give you a plus, right? And he was able to do it without the help of a little bit of extra science. So
that's pretty much baseball for me. I just wanted to kind of cover a little bit of the Jays. Offense drying up, dropping 3 or 4 to KC, winnable series. If it wasn't for Salvador Perez, probably would have been a different
seven and
story.
nine though, 7-9,
Yep,
2 weeks in.
yep, looking good.
If
Like they're
I'll
still
take that,
battling.
I'll take that, man.
Are they second, or they just kind of bounce between second and third right now? Every once in a while,
I
they'll drop
think
down. But
they're third.
last I checked, they
Uh,
were second.
they're
Dead.
tied for third.
There
Tied
we
for
go.
third, 438 win percentage with Baltimore. So the Rays are ahead of them at 8-8 at 500. The Jays have actually all the Toronto teams have a night off
Yeah.
tonight. So yeah, nothing to watch really sports wise here. So I'll just be probably playing more of the show.
Over to the NBA. Sadly, the Raptors, they just had to go and beat KC the other night, and Chris Boucher goes off. I messaged you right away, John, and I'm like, Chris Boucher goes off. Way to go, man. What are you thinking? We talked about, like you said at the top of the show here, the issues with, were we recording then? I can't even remember. So I'll let you actually take over. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I can't remember recording.
oh, we're recording still.
No, but
right
if
now.
if we were recording when you were talking about Lowry and all that, it's
Oh,
been a
oh
tough show
yeah,
for me today. I'll let
yeah.
you just carry on with your take on the Raptors right now and how disappointed you are and how they keep winning even when teams around them seem to want to win.
Well, I mean, my first question is why in the hell did we keep Kyle Lowry? Simply like at the trade deadline, you're thinking, okay, well, this team isn't as bad as it's played, and we can get back in this, and Kyle Lowry is a piece that we're going to be able to use to get back in it. And then what has he played, Ryan? 3 games since the trade
Yeah,
deadline. Uh,
yeah. You said, what is he going to coach the team here from here on out?
Yeah, that's it. Like we're paying Kyle. We kept Kyle Lowry to coach him, to sit on the sidelines and coach Lowry, coach Van Vliet. I'm all for the tank. By the way, I really am all for the tank. But obviously, the Raptors just don't know how to do it properly, right?
Yeah,
On
they're too
on a
good.
night, and you know what? I might as well just say it because we're close to the end of it. We have the segment called the 5 minute major. My 5 minute major today is going to the Toronto Raptors for not knowing how to tank. There was a night last week where all of the teams behind him that are lower than in the standings, they all won. And the Raptors, they're like, you know what? Let's follow suit. Instead of going down when we can get a top 5 pick and turn this thing around real quick, they're like, nah, we're going to win. We're going to battle for that last playoff spot so we can run into the buzzsaw that is the Milwaukee Bucks or the Brooklyn Nets. I'm sorry. This is Leafland. This is where the Leafs were for years and years and years,
Yeah,
finishing in the eighth playoff spot or 10th or 11th in the Eastern Conference, just missing the playoffs, drafting in the dog shit area of the draft and not able to do anything to turn it around. That's exactly what the Raptors are going to do right now. They could easily have a top 5 pick, add that to Fred Van Vliet, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Chris Boucher. You could easily turn this team around with a lottery pick into a championship contender, and yet you're going to spit in the face of that and try and chase after a playoff spot when you're going to just get eliminated by a top seed team. No, man, you got to lose these games. The Toronto Raptors are literally wasting an opportunity to become a championship contender yet again, to chase after something that is a pipe dream that'll never happen. They're not a championship team. They're not a playoff team. Not this year.
yeah. I'm with you in the fact that they're just like what the Leafs were in for so long, just too good to have a shitty draft position, but like not good enough to compete for playoffs. So like every year you just keep hurting your franchise. Keep unless you have the best scouts in the league, unless you can sign some offshore free agents out of nowhere, like you're not getting any better anytime soon. You're just gonna stay right where you are. So I'm with you. Like I'm all for a tank too. It's a dignified tank. You want to come out there and actually try, but I guess it becomes a problem when your trying leads to winning.
Yeah.
That's the real issue because you got the Bulls, the Wizards, the Cavaliers, the Magic, the Pistons. There's 5 teams below you, but you're all battling for that bottom spot. I mean, the Pistons have 17 wins. That's
You're not
wow.
going to get the top spot, but if you can get to the top 5, top 6,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. So as long as you can just keep losing games, it's just funny how they have enough of a roster put together where and they're professional athletes. Like they have, some dignity. They're not they're not trying to go out there and sell games, but my goodness. It's disappointing, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think just a lottery pick is going to be all, the savior here. Like it doesn't just have to be that. They could go out and assign somebody in the offseason and definitely add to the team. It doesn't necessarily have to be just a lottery pick to make the team better, but I understand how much more value that adds if they're adding like, a
it's not
franchise
even like you're looking
cornerstone.
for. Yeah, it's not even like you're looking for a savior though, right? Like you have a
Yeah.
really good basketball team that
Yeah.
is having an off year. Take advantage of that. They're not going to play like this in normal years, in a normal season. This is something you need to take advantage of. And the fact that you be able to plug in a top 5 pick into a team that shouldn't be there, shouldn't be in the bottom 5 of the league, man, that's just going to make you that much better. Yeah, go out and sign a free agent, but you don't like Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Morgan Riley, all top 5 draft picks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the Leafs did not get to be a number 1 team by playing for the last playoff spot. They got to be a number 1 team by drafting high, by playing like crap. Go talk to Nazem Kadri and ask him if they tanked. He'll tell you the truth. Give him a couple beers and a shot. He'll tell you the truth. They tanked.
And the shot. It's not just a couple of beers. You got to get a shot in you too. But yeah, think about this, man. There's some teams that notoriously tank and get players like Jack Eichel, Casey Mittelstadt, Connor McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Jesse Puljujarvi. List
But
goes
they
over and
didn't
over,
come
man.
into teams that are as prepared to succeed
Yeah, I got
as
you.
the Raptors are. They all came onto teams that were tire fires, and the
But that's
Raptors are
where
not a tire fire.
that's where the Raptors are in such a weird situation because, like, how do you expect them to tank when they're not a tire fire? You know what I mean? Like,
Do what they're doing,
it's a
sit
lot harder.
everybody.
Yeah, but it's a lot harder to do that. I mean, that's the crazy part is I wonder if maybe internally they're thinking that's not what we're about. We don't tank because we're only one piece away. We're only 3 years away from being 3 years away. Okay, that's a different conversation, but we're only one piece away. So maybe even in, if we maintain our position and we just are aggressive in free agency, we can always find that guy. That doesn't necessarily have to be a
But
lottery
that's
pick.
not
But
this year. That's
yeah,
not
I
this
agree.
year. Come on.
I'm just offering up a second, like
Yeah,
an
I get it.
alternative.
I get it.
But it's one of those things where you wonder, like, maybe that's why we're in such purgatory because like it's really hard to like go through a tank when some of the names on the roster and some of the pieces are like, we're not a tire fire. Like we shouldn't be this bad in the first place. I think they should have more wins. I think they should at the trade deadline this season in a different, like they easily could have been buyers, right? But things just didn't, the cards didn't really come up in their
Right
favor.
before COVID hit them, Ryan, they were on like a 7-2 run.
Yeah.
Like of the last 9 games they had played, they were on the right. They were on a positive run, and then COVID hit them, and that was it. That was that was the final nail in the Raptors season because they were never able to recover from that. So you're
And
right. They should
the
have
only
had more
teams I
wins.
think that are issues in this entire conference are Sixers, Nets, and Bucks, maybe Celtics. But
They
like
can beat them all. They
exactly,
realistically could beat them all in
and
a playoff series.
that's why I say they could have potentially been buyers this year. Like it's almost like you can't contrast the two so much, but it's true. Like they go from potentially like having a chance to be a better team and get a fifth, sixth spot in the playoffs and push. You've seen teams get that seed and go all the way and get it done, and all the way already it's kind of gone so far the needles hit the other way where like we're not even dressing guys, and it's definitely harder to tank when you could have gone either way in this season depending on how things went. So it's tough.
Listen, speaking honestly to the diehard Raptors fans and all Raptors fans alike out there, if Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., and Malachi Flynn, Chris Boucher, and all those guys get together and they play 100% their best game, they can beat the Nets, they can beat the Bucks, they can beat the 76ers in a playoff series. But the difference is if the Nets play 80% and the Raptors play 97%, the Nets are going to win. If the 76ers play 85% and the Raptors aren't 100%, the 76ers are going to win. Same for the Bucks. The Raptors need to be on 100% of the time, the entire playoffs, playing to the top gear, never having a slip up to win a championship this year. And that's not, sorry, to even make it to the championship series. That's not saying that you're going to go and you're going to see the Lakers or you're going to see the Blazers or you're going to you're going to see the Jazz or you're going to see the Suns and be able to take one of those teams down. Right? So that's why
Yeah.
I'm so for the tank here. You're right. They shouldn't be here. They're not as bad as they're playing. They should have more wins, but they are here. They don't have those wins.
So
They need to
commit
take
to it.
advantage of the situation,
Yeah.
commit to the situation, lose these games, get that pick, and come back and show that you're the team that can beat the Nets, that can beat the Bucks, that can beat the 76ers. No one cares this year. No one in Toronto cares about this year. They don't. So don't worry about it. We've got the Leafs, we've got the Blue Jays to take care of us. Just tank away and do it do it for the betterment of the franchise. I can understand if Kyle Lowry doesn't give two dog what's about tanking and getting better for next year because he might not be here next year. But the other guys should really buy into this and really realize that they can take advantage of a situation that they shouldn't be in.
Got you. All right, buddy. I think it's time for my 5 minute major because you so eloquently kind of snuck yours in there during our NBA coverage. So that's perfect. And I realize now, remember we started off and I'm thinking, I forget who my major was. It didn't take me long to clue in here. And it's Saturday night. There was a bit of an issue that I ran into, and it comes down to just paying for a pay-per-view fight. I'm sure I'm sure you witnessed some of this 4-hour concert, couple of boxing matches, and the YouTube star wins once again, beats Ben Askren. In what was it, an 8-second right hook, and
It
Buddy just
was
fell
well, it
asleep.
was a minute and
Yeah,
48
it's
seconds
disgusting.
of the fight. Yeah.
Absolutely disgusting. So the reason why Jake Paul is going to get my 5 minute major is because I'm so sick and tired of seeing this guy's name everywhere, all over the place. And that's, I think, 3 fights now that he's made money off of, and all three of them have really been, when you break it down, when you actually take a look at the situation, like they're not even like I think the first one, I forget who he fought, but it was like another YouTuber. It wasn't even a real
KSI,
fighter.
I think his name is KSI. I don't know for
Sure,
sure.
it was somebody, right? But he fights literally a nameless person. He opens up as what would like the underdog, but then by the time the fight actually starts, he's a favorite. Then he fight the second fight. So okay, now he's established, right? We all love how Jake Paul's become a boxer, right? Because he fought somebody who's not a boxer. Cool. So then he goes and he fights Nate Robinson. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Nate Robinson was an NBA player.
Yeah, and a small guy, like a tiny
Oh,
NBA player.
oh, of course, right? Like a tiny little NBA guy. And I think everyone started giving Nate Robinson a chance because like Jake Paul was going to now fight. Like he was going to fight a real guy. He was going to fight a real person. And Paul beats him up. So then all of a sudden, wow, this guy's 2-0 in his boxing career. He's unbelievable. And then Saturday night, the hype, the unbelievable, like Snoop Dogg in the house, everybody just having a blast. I'm telling you, if I paid for this pay-per-view, I would have been absolutely rattled. But thankfully a friend of mine did. So I was able to kind of, he didn't charge for it. He could care less. And we watched it and we just commented the whole night on what a joke the thing was. Literally a joke. It's Ben Askren. Did he sell that on purpose? Like, was that actually on? Everyone's believing he literally sold the fight.
I mean, okay, so you talk about how Jake Paul books himself, and he books himself like he's in the WWE. That's the way I look at it. It's just like he's basically booking the matches that he knows he can win, right? So
Oh yeah,
he's never going to fight against somebody who actually has skin in the game, who actually could lose some name value or some sort of ranking by losing to Jake Paul. He'll never fight someone like that. So good on Jake Paul for setting himself up
yeah.
for success. But yeah, I'm of the camp that now first things first. Ben Askren, he was
He's
selling
an
the dad
MMA.
bod.
Wasn't he an MMA
Selling the
guy?
dad bod, was he not? Like, did you see that the shape he came in?
Yeah.
Now, I hey, you know what? Maybe you can't get into the best shape. The guy had hip replacement surgery in August. Jake Paul fought a dude who had hip replacement surgery less than a year before this fight. So there's that. There's the fact that Ben Askren is a wrestler, has never been a striker in his entire career, won his
He still hasn't
championships
ever
by
thrown
being
a
a wrestler.
strike. He's still never thrown one.
And so he doesn't have really the strongest chin. And what the hell was he doing with his hands? What was Ben Askren doing with his hands? It wasn't guarding. There wasn't really any boxing guard up there. It was like an open Main Street, overhand hook to the face or whatever or whatever it was. I don't know the specific terminology to it, but it was an open shot straight down Main Street basically. Yeah. And he hit Ben Askren hard. He hit him hard. But my question here is, and I don't think Ben Askren sold the shot. I think Ben Askren sold his soul to take the shot.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it, because I'm not assuming anybody is like the best actor in the. Like, it looked like he took a shot and got knocked over like at like 9 p.m. Eastern time, and it's like 12:30 at night, and you're watching the blue-haired guy fight. Oh my gosh, the fight just before
Frank Mir.
Yeah, no. This was just between. There was the Muir and the
Okay.
is it Pennington? Muir and I forget the guy's name. But they fought, and then it was this blue-haired guy and another guy, and it was like that was literally the best fight. That was the best thing, and it was the only one that had some real action in it. But you're sitting there watching like hours and hours of concerts, and what is it, Doja Cat and Justin Bieber, and it was like everyone just is getting duped, man. I understand we're at home, it's COVID, but like you got Fight Island, you got fight nights, you got all this is stuff you're a big fan of. Like you can find fights if you want. The fact that we all got duped into this pay-per-view event from a YouTuber that continues to just like fake his rise into boxing. I don't understand why everybody cares and why it just continues to be content. And look at me turning and talking about it. So that's where maybe I do understand, right? Like we live in this world where we're just constantly being duped by fake stuff. And Paul knocking out Ben Askren to improve to 3-0 as a professional boxer is fake news to me. It's not real. And people paid money to watch like 5 hours of BS on Saturday night. So he gets my 5-minute major. I appreciate you
Yeah.
helping me through that with your knowledge on Ben Askren and that. But in
I
the end, dude,
and you talk.
I'm not a fan of this kid, and I think we all kind of want to see him get knocked out. But that's where we're getting duped. Is we keep buying into this, keep watching, and like you said, he's just setting himself up for success every time. But like the celebration, like he's LeBron at the end of the NBA Finals. Are you kidding? Guy's an idiot, man. Oh my God, he's laying on the mat like he did something. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I mean, that's the Paul brothers. They're really there. They're there to get a reaction out of you. I believe Logan is supposed to fight Floyd Mayweather, is he not? And that's the first one I'm looking at. Is just like, there ain't no way. If this fight happens, there is no way in hell Floyd Mayweather is losing his undefeated streak to Logan damn Paul. That's just not going to happen. So maybe that if that fight happens, that's where we first look to a Paul brother getting their comeuppance and eating a couple shots. I did enjoy Logan Paul being on WWE. Took a stunner from Kevin Owens. I am a WWE fan. Took a stunner from Owens, and afterwards he said, "I did not sell that. That shit hurts." So yeah, good on him for giving a little bit of love to the WWE. And yeah, Jake Paul's never going to put himself in a position to lose. So it needs to be a sanctioned fight where somebody actually has some skin in the game for me to actually believe that he can box. He can obviously box. He's trained, he knows, but he can't elite box. And you want to talk about stupid. You want to talk about celebration. He called Daniel Cormier out after that fight. Former UFC heavyweight champion who knocked out Stipe Miocic to win the title. He called him out. And I listened to DC and Helwani today, and DC's is like, there ain't no way in hell I'm punching down to you, boy. What have you done to deserve to fight me?
Yeah.
Right. And I love hearing that out of DC. Right. DC's like, let's send this kid someone who's ranked just outside of the 20s in the UFC and see if he can hold his own with him. And then maybe we send him someone else. But that's where DC's at with Jake Paul. So I'm with him.
I believe it, man. Anyway, that's probably it for our show tonight. We've gone significantly long. We wanted to come in and recap last night's Leaf game against Vancouver, the vicious, brutal hit from Alexander Edler that earned him a 2-game suspension. We wanted to talk the Jays' most recent loss to the KC Royals and how the Yankees are off to their worst start. But things are still looking good for the Leafs and the Jays. Leafs are on top of the division. Jays are battling. They're tied for third. So in the end, we just hope the Raptors tank a little bit more, and we'll be happy. But until then, John, I'm sure you're willing to get off onto your baseball game and ham some dingers. Smash some frozen ropes into the third deck for me, would you?
Yeah, I don't know how to stream, so I can't share any of my stuff. I'm old. I'm not a kid. I have to go to my nephew to figure out how to stream. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be going to play in a little bit of the show. We'll be back next week with some more hot takery. Yeah, nice talking to y'all.
Hey, good talking to you, buddy. Take care. Have a good rest of your day.
Later, man.
Peace.